I'm here with Peter Ettedgui, one of the directors and writers of Superman, the Christopher Reeve story. Yeah, thanks for joining me today. I guess what brought you and Ian onto this project?
I mean, you know, uh, I think that we'd made two films, which in a weird sort of way were the ideal preparation for this film. Not that we knew we were ever going to make a film about Christopher Reeve. We'd made a film about Alexander McQueen, the fashion designer, and that film really focused us on how do you tell a biographical story in an interesting way so it doesn't become a sort of episodic, linear, cradle to grave kind of story. So we had done that, and then we'd gone on and made a second film about the Paralympic movement. And obviously, that film, being about the Paralympics, had taken us into the world of disability and people living with disability, and how society is really not fit for purpose. It's an ableist society we live in, how difficult and challenging it is for people living with disabilities. And, the extraordinary story of the athletes that we unfold in that film, all of whom suffer from very different kinds of disability, um, was a galvanizing thing for us. We kind of like saw the world through a different lens as a result of that film. So, and one piece of archive that we saw while we were making the film didn't find its way into the film, but it stuck in our minds, was of Christopher Reeve acting as the MC at the 1996 Paralympic Games. It was about a year after his accident, I guess. And there he was on in his wheelchair, on a ventilator, which means effectively having 24/7 life support that you're wired up to, and speaking so eloquently, and I want to say nobly, but that sounds like such a terrible word, but with real presence and poise to the athletes entering the stadium. And yeah, that image really stuck in, certainly in my mind. And we were approached to make the story of Christopher Reeve, and it just felt almost like it was fate, that we were taking elements of both of the films that we'd made and the purpose, particularly of the Paralympic film. We were taking that and we were able to kind of like extend ourselves, um, and immerse ourselves in this particular story. It just felt like the right thing for us. Now, on top of that, there's the fact that, it's Superman. And to get to make a film using the iconic imagery of Superman, and tell a story like that in a documentary format is a wonderful thing. So, it was a kind of a balance of those two things that really drew us to this project. I should say that the film was the film was initiated by an archive producer whose name is Daniel Kilroy, and he reached out to the Reeve family to establish whether they had any archive that they might be willing to see used in a film about their father. So that was the thing that got the whole ball rolling.
Yeah, and watching this documentary, I'm guessing it's no accident that like in Superman, Superman's the actual character, and Clark Kent's the character that Superman plays. Um, but in this, like you kind of it seemed like you played with that in the documentary. Like Superman's the character that Christopher Reeve plays, but then you keep going back to his role as Superman and his role as
Yeah,
Christopher Reeve.
because there's two things. There's a profound tragic irony in the story. And I remember feeling this when I first read of Christopher having his accident, that this guy who had personified the whole idea of the superhero and had pioneered it on screen was now, not only did he not have any superpowers, but he didn't have the ability to even so much as raise a finger. Um, that's quite a sort of like a dark and compelling thought, and then to use to harness that within the storytelling was really important to us. But then there's also the fact that within the mythology of Superman, you have the idea of Superman being shorn of his powers, that contact with kryptonite, um, you know, fatally weakens him. And so, there seemed to be almost like an analogy for what happened to Christopher within the story of Superman as well. And those were elements that in different ways we sort of pulled out, I hope with sensitivity and not, because it could be kind of like pretty corny if you handled in the wrong way.
Yeah.
But we wanted to pull those out and tease them through the narrative.
What were some discoveries you made along the way? Because obviously, like, a bunch of people know about Christopher Reeve, but I'm sure, like, when you were putting this together, maybe there was a couple of things you came across and you're like, "Ooh, didn't know about that. That's going in the
I
movie."
mean, look, everyone knows two things about this man. They know that he played Superman and that he suffered a terrible accident. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to almost get those things out of the way as soon as possible. With the first 7 or 8 minutes of the film, you establish that he has this tragic accident, and you also have seen in the pre-credit sequence to the film that he played Superman. So you get the elephants out of the room, and that leaves you with plenty of space to sort of explore who this person really was. And the journey that we take the audience on in the film, that journey of discovery, is very much the journey of discovery that Ian, my fellow director, and I had while we were making the film. It was sort of like, we didn't know very much about him beyond that. We didn't know that he'd had two serious love stories, one with Gay Exton, who was with him during the Superman years, and one with Dana, who became his wife, Dana Reeve, later in life. And Dana had been his partner throughout that period when he had the accident, and set up the foundation with him. Was their love story was just like quite remarkable to us, and nor did we know that story would have a tragic ending as well. So there was so much discovery there. And then I think there's so many things that we discovered about him, but one of the greatest gifts and discoveries was getting to know and work with Christopher's three children, Matthew, Alexandra, and Will, who are remarkable human beings, each of whom sort of like manifest a particular element of their dad. You've got Matthew, who is like the kind of the artist, the filmmaker himself, and we had a lot of footage that Matthew had shot of his father, documenting his rehabilitation. And then you have Alexandra, who, as Alexandra says herself, she inherited Chris's advocacy gene. She works in DC for a non-profit, and she's an amazing advocate herself. And then Will, who Will says, I got the camera gene. Will is the kind of very at home on camera, as you probably know him as a reporter on GMA, and so each of them, when you met the three of them for the first time all together, you were aware that if you somehow squished them all together, you'd get Christopher Reeve, and just gaining their trust and becoming friends with them, and having them work, with us and be such close sort of allies of the film and its journey, both making it and then putting it out in the world. That's been one of the joys and true discoveries of making this film for us.
Yeah, and then you mentioned Dana Reeve, and I mean, she's basically a superhero. You guys totally did right by her in this. And you said the family had to watch this. What was their response to this? Because I imagine it'd be bittersweet because but their parents are gone now. But you guys did such a great job bringing their character, their character and their humanity out. That's got to be a kind of a bittersweet thing to see, I would imagine.
I think it is bittersweet. I mean, they left us a very free hand to make the film as we felt it should be made, and we showed it to them for the first time probably about 2 weeks before we looked picture, because we wanted them to have time to feed back. But we also didn't want them to see it until it was on screen in the way that we wanted it to be. It was still not absolutely perfect. There was still a bit more work for us to do on it, but it was the first time that we had a cut of the film that properly represented how we felt the film should be. So they saw it in a screening room in New York, and we were in our edit in London, and we had a pre-arranged Zoom with them directly after the screening. And Will is a bit of a prankster. So as we were trying to kind of like tune into our Zoom call with them, we heard him sort of like saying in the background, "Oh yeah, but that bit was just so naff," and so and just sort of like, "Oh yeah, that didn't really work at all." And so when our faces appeared on the Zoom screen, we were looking already anxious and drained of all color, and Will just laughed at us and gotcha. They actually loved it. They were thrilled to see it, how it had come together. They were very moved, of course, by it. Each of them had something that they responded in particular to in the film, and we had some excellent feedback as well. Will, I remember particularly, was sort of like saying, "Look, be careful when you're showing our family life." There was a lot of laughter and happiness. It wasn't all about the accident and the injury. And so we totally agreed with that note, and we went back and we sort of like dug out a few more little gems just to leaven the tone at certain points. But that was it, and I think that the rest of the cast, i.e., other close family and friends who've seen it, have just responded so well to it, which makes us obviously feel very happy. We've sort of done our jobs. But yeah, that's critically important to us. It's great that critics and audiences have responded so well to the film, but it's particularly gratifying to us to know that people who were in it, who knew Christopher so well, as a friend or a colleague or whatever, have felt that it did him justice. That's great.
Yeah, that's just a wonderful gift to give to the family. Superman, the Christopher Reeve story, is currently available to rent, and I believe it'll be streaming on Max on December 7th. But I'll leave you with this. What's a movie, a little off topic, but sort of on topic, but what's a movie that you would recommend to our audience that you think is like, this movie's really good and no one talks about it? I wish more people would watch this.
Wow, what that's out at the moment?
Yeah, it could be an old movie, it could be one that just came out, it can be anything.
Um, oh, I hate being put on the spot like this.
Oh, I should have warned you.
There is
Just
you
say
should have warned
Gremlins and
me.
we'll move on.
Uh, I mean, no, but everyone knows Gremlins. We
Oh
want,
yeah,
we want
yeah.
to, we want to unearth some treasure, don't we? Um, oh wow. I mean, there are so many really wonderful documentaries out there at the moment. Um, uh, uh, I would say particularly some films that I've absolutely loved um, this year, or one film I absolutely loved was No Other Land, a documentary about what has been going on the West Bank before the whole October 7th. So obviously a very political film, but it's a film that's very human, and that casts a new light on on a subject that is tearing people apart at the moment. And I think that's a very important film. But I would also say, God, there's so many wonderful documentaries this year. Let's stick with that one.
All
I'd
right.
love more people to discover that.
Well, that I
It's
mean
not
that
without it.
yeah, that's a great pick. I haven't even heard of that one, so that's a great pick. But Peter, thanks for joining me today, and good luck with the movie. And congratulations, and yeah, you did good work, sir. And
Thank
give
you
Ian
very
all my
much
love as
indeed.
well.
Thank you. I certainly will. He's very sad not to be here with me as well.
All right.
We usually fight over who's going to speak next. So
Well,
at least you haven't had to witness that tawdry spectacle today.
well, you won this fight.
I certainly did. I'm so happy.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.